So I've never been married, therefore I'm not going to make a video on how to get a wife, let alone how to keep a wife. And I get that this is kind of a creepy topic for a 52-year-old man, a bachelor, to be making a video on how to get a girlfriend. But what the hell? I'm going to risk it. So, number one, most important thing is get a really wide funnel, okay? The more women you meet, the better your odds of getting a girlfriend. Now, let's say you're an appealing chap who tends to be pretty successful with women. Okay, that would mean that, say, 1 out of 5 women that you interact with who are age appropriate, social status appropriate, going to be attracted to you. Okay, going to really want to date you. So that's a pretty good ratio. Kind of in my life experience, about 1 out of 10. If I get to spend any significant time at all with women, I've consistently found that my odds are about 10%. So, of course, I could be wrong. Maybe they're 5%, but they're somewhere in my life experience. If I spend time with a woman who's appropriate for me, the odds are 5 to 10% that she will want to date me. So therefore, with that kind of ratio, whatever your ratio, just obviously the wider your funnel, the more women you meet, and the more your chances of dating someone, getting a girlfriend. I remember when I was chronically ill, bedridden, living with my parents, being bedridden, sick with chronic fatigue syndrome for about 4 or 5 years. I knew that if I simply met enough women, I'd get a girlfriend, even though I was chronically ill, bedridden, with no current rational prospects for recovery. I just knew that I had to talk to enough women. Okay, I've never been a dancer. Okay, so women don't see me dancing on the dance floor and go, oh, I gotta have some of that. I need to be able to talk to women to draw them into my web. And so I just started placing a lot of singles ads in Jewish publications and secular publications, and I started talking to a lot of women and corresponding, and this is 1993. And as I expected, there started to be women who, from the very first phone call, I could tell that they'd bitten on the hook, on the big juicy hook that I'd laid out for them. And they started making the drive up to where I was living in Newcastle, California, living with my parents. Come on, mate, let me in. And I was chronically ill. I was still getting girlfriends. And one woman would come up one weekend, and another one would come up during the week, and good times. So I started taking yoga classes in 2009. So I was 42, because I expected that there'd be a pretty good ratio of women to men in yoga classes. There was consistently a ratio of about 3 women to every man. And I think on my 3rd yoga class, I got a girlfriend for the next year. So yoga was a great way to meet women. At the great old age of 52, as I look back now, it's stunning how little gradation there is between my girlfriends. And I realized this when I read the book by David Schnock, Passionate Marriage. He talks about differentiation. It doesn't tend to change over the course of a lifetime. It tends to stay the same for individuals, tends to stay about the same for families, so for couples. And differentiation means basically your ability to handle anxiety, your ability to be true to yourself while staying in relationship to the people who are important to you. Passionate Marriage by David Schnarch, a great book. So if you think you're so much more mature and emotionally developed than your siblings, then that's a delusion. Okay, if you think you're so much more mature and developed than your girlfriend or spouse, that's a delusion. If you think you're so much more mature and sophisticated and emotionally developed than your parents, generally speaking, that's a complete delusion. Because we all, once we start a relationship, we feel this tremendous incentive to sell ourselves out to stay away from conflict. We start developing intense feelings for someone, and so inevitably there is conflict. And when there is conflict, because you feel so intensely for this person, you're going to have a tremendous incentive to sell yourself out, to sell out who you are and what you stand for, so that you can avoid conflict and you can keep having lovey-dovey times with your beloved. But as you increasingly sell yourself out to avoid conflict, your beloved will lose attraction for you because she fell in love with you. And as you sell out yourself to stay in relationship to her, you tend to lose her as well. On the other hand, just completely disregarding your beloved's wishes and just doing your own thing, pursuing your own goals, no matter how she feels about it, that's a recipe for being a 52-year-old bachelor. So it's important to take into consideration the people who are important to you, give them due consideration, and simply balance that against giving yourself consideration and what's important to you. And if you sell out on either end because you just can't deal with the anxiety of the interruption to your lovey-dovey relationship, you're going to be miserable. And so we all tend to relate within a pretty narrow band of emotional maturity, ability to deal with anxiety, or what was perhaps best summed up with the word differentiation. So if you date someone who is significantly more differentiated than yourself, they're not going to put up with it because they're going to find you immature, unable to handle anxiety, like either too eager to sell yourself out to please her, or on the other hand, inconsiderate of her needs and wishes. Just doesn't work, doesn't happen. On the other hand, you go out with someone and you find they're not able to handle anxiety and they send you 40 text messages in 3 hours because they're so anxious about something. You're not going to want to be in a relationship with someone like that either. You're never going to date for any length of time someone less mature than yourself, significantly less mature, and you're never going to be able to sucker someone who's much more mature than you into hanging around with you for any length of time. So just look at your previous partners, and that's who you are. That's your level of maturity. Okay? Look at your friends, your exes. That's who you are. And you'll notice that the maturity of your partners didn't really change a lot from the time you first started dating. Say the first time you fell in love at 15, okay? That girl, pretty much in the same ballpark as the woman you're with today. Like, it's rare that someone is able to date an entirely better class of woman or entirely better class of men. Okay, so for men, yeah, that's possible because they can get rich. And so women will put a great premium on security, and so if you can provide for a woman, they'll be often willing to put up with a lot of emotional immaturity. Still, generally speaking, I think this David Schnarch theory put forth in Passionate Marriage holds true, that your level of differentiation does not tend to change. Like, you can read all the self-help books, you can go to psychotherapy, you can change your religion. Generally speaking, the level of differentiation does not change without doing very hard, very difficult, very demanding work. So, I'm just going to reflect on where I met all my girlfriends. So the first time I fell in love was about 15, and she was a janitor. It was the summer of 1982. She was a janitor, and I worked at a summer camp. And so she was a grade below me during 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and we were just barely acquainted. But now suddenly I'm 15, she's 14, where am I? 16, no, I was 16, she was 15. Okay, first girlfriend, first time I fell in love. After that, next girlfriend, we were on the same floor of my UCLA dormitory. Next girlfriend, she worked at this health farm that I went to try to recover from chronic fatigue syndrome. Next girlfriend, we met through a singles ad that her mother placed in the Northern California Jewish weekly newspaper. And she told me that all the men she dated after me were just worse than me, that they were felons, and she had to call the police on them. Then my next girlfriend, I answered her singles ad in an Orlando Jewish newspaper that an acquaintance in Orlando had sent me, and I was just willy-nilly answering singles ads at this time because I was bedridden. I didn't know how to get out of my problem. So she was a chronically ill engineer who was 11 years older than me. Next girlfriend, I answered a singles ad that I think a mother placed in a Jewish publication in Orlando. Next girlfriends I met at synagogue, Jewish events. I was an aspiring actor, so I was getting a lot of acting classes and getting social with actors. So I met women that way. I met a girlfriend going to a Stu and Lou Jewish singles event. I went up to her and asked her, "What synagogue do you go to?" She was all like, "Oh wow, this guy's converted to Judaism. He's really excited about his Judaism. You know, let's bond and grow Jewishly." She was about 5 years older. Okay, next girlfriend, met quite a few at Shabbat dinners. I remember I met this one very demure-looking young lady at a Shabbat dinner, and at the time I was 27, 28, and she looked about 18 to 20, but I knew she was older than that, so I asked her, "So, where do you go to high school?" And that kind of made her blush, and it made her laugh. She was 25, 26, so I dated her for a few months. Okay, next girlfriend, met at synagogue, traveling Shabbat singles. We'd go to different synagogues every Friday night. Okay, next girl I met online. She saw me on TV. So I met several women who saw me on TV and wanted to get to know me. And then next girlfriend for a year I met at an online journalism conference at USC in something like, I don't know, August, September of 2002. Then a year later, my next girlfriend, I'd read her article on David Poland's website on Hollywood. She'd written this funny satirical article about Hollywood, and I sent her an email saying how much I liked it, because her article had her picture on it. So I liked her writing, I liked her picture. We traded a few emails. I invited her out for coffee. We met for coffee, talked for about 2 hours. I bought her a sandwich. We had lunch there at the coffee house, and I took her for a ride, drive up the coast. We pulled over in Malibu. We walked hand in hand on the beach, and we sat on the rocks on the beach, and I kissed her. So I kissed her within 4 hours of first meeting, like doing boom, 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 boom. She was the hottest girlfriend I ever had, probably. So by that time, I was about 37. She was about 27. Okay, next girlfriend I had, I met on the set of Lesbian Swole Fest 17. So she had a starring role. And I dated her after she left the industry. Next girlfriend, I met her at a Los Angeles Press Club function. I met at least two girlfriends at Los Angeles Press Club functions. So yeah, that was cool. Next girlfriend I met at the Tampa show. It's a show I was covering, obviously, in Tampa, Florida. She was a photographer. And then there's this woman I met who was out of the industry, used to be an actress. So we got together one weekend in Vegas. She was a big fan. And then someone else I'd written about online, and she wanted to meet me, and she found me intriguing, and I found her intriguing. Then next girlfriend, Los Angeles Press Club. And do I fancy tall women? I've had girlfriends who were tall. I've had girlfriends who were short. So I'm equal opportunity. And then next girlfriend was at yoga. So to have a love life, you have to have a social life. I heard that in one of my 12-step meetings. I think that's so important, because the bigger your social life, the wider the funnel of women who can meet you in a social aspect and want to get even more social with you and want to grow Jewishly. Like, who doesn't want to grow Jewishly with Luke Ford? So I found taking writing classes good for meeting women, taking yoga classes, taking stand-up comedy classes, taking acting classes. There's a terrific HBO comedy, Barry, and Kevin Michael Grace on my show says it reveals how this morally empty and stupid actors are. On the other hand, it also reveals how generous many female actresses are with their favors. Like, actresses tend to be pretty generous with their favors. So taking acting classes, improv classes, writing classes, stand-up comedy classes, like taking classes, yoga classes, great way to meet women. If you're a leader among men, then women will naturally orient themselves towards you. If men think you're a loser, then women by and large aren't going to have much interest in you. So women are really good at picking out where you are in the social pecking order. Obviously, the higher you are, the more attractive you are. And women are also really good at knowing where they stand in the sexual marketplace, generally speaking. Like, I found that women who are 6s know they are 6s, women who are 7s know they're 7s, women who are 5s usually know they're 5s. So women by and large have a more accurate grasp on these things than do guys. When I came to America in 1977, I was 11 years of age, and I loved how American girls were much more forward than Australian girls. So Australian girls, by and large, would never ask you out. But American girls would occasionally ask you out. So in 6th grade, the most beautiful girl in the class dropped a note on my desk saying, "Would you go with me?" And then other times women have picked me up. They would. I remember this one Costa Rican girl at a Dennis Prager singles event. She like walked up to me and said, "Oh, my friend dared me to come speak to you." So I said, "Oh, okay," and started chatting with her and got her phone number. And then when I got home, I called her up, invited her to dinner, I think that night, and she said, "Well, if I come to dinner, can I spend the night with you? Because I work in Century City, which is right near where you live, and I don't have to drive all the way home." And I was like, And she said, "Oh, I don't want to force you." And I was like, No, that's fine. But yeah, she, I met her at the Dennis Prager singles event, and then I asked her out to dinner. And when asking her out to dinner, after just like talking to her for 5-10 minutes at the Prager event, she said, "Is it okay if I spend the night with you?" Okay, so I take her to dinner. Like I want to be like the consummate 19th century Victorian gentleman that's how I see myself. Then I take her to dinner, and we come back to my place, and I offer her like a back rub, and she says, "Oh, should I take my clothes off?" And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And women are sneaky. They're tricky. Like there was this woman that was beyond plain, was quite unattractive, but she had some connection to my childhood or to my family, and so when she wanted to meet, like we were to meet at a bookstore, so I get to the bookstore to meet her, and she told the clerk, like, you know, tell Luke that I'm outside on the patio or something. So it was like the clerk. So I go outside, and she's like a 3, okay? And it was kind of awkward, but somehow she talked me into meeting up with her on another occasion to go for a walk. All right, I think she walked me around this galleria in Sherman Oaks, all right? And I never say no when a woman asks me out. It would be unchivalrous. So we walk around the galleria, then somehow she maneuvers me home. Okay, so we're at her home, and like I'm kind of dying to get out of there. And she said, "Oh, do you want a back massage? Or like your shoulders look tight. Let me rub your shoulders." And I was like, "Okay, you can rub my shoulders." And she says, "Oh, you know, your back's so tight. Let me rub your back." I said, "Okay, you can rub my back." Then she says, "Oh, you know, let me rub your chest." So I roll over, she rubs my chest, and I was like, you know, I'm like dying to get out of there. And then she starts rubbing my stomach, and I just lose all reason. Like, so she took advantage of me, man. And there have been women like that. So, yeah, I've found American women much more forward than Australian women. So I really like that concept of IOIs, indicators of interest, because pretty much since I've been attuned to that concept, I haven't made a wrong move. So you need to get indicators of interest from a woman before you ask her out. And indicators of interest are if she asks you unnecessary questions. So how are you? Did you have a nice time? So those sort of like socially required questions, they don't indicate any interest whatsoever. But if she says, "Oh, I love how I love your haircut. Where did you get it?" Or I love those jeans you're wearing. What are they? Or I'm really interested in something you said about this Russian novel. Could you tell me more? Okay, so if she's asking you all sorts of unnecessary questions, big indicator of interest. If she's touching you unnecessarily and saying, "Can I rub your shoulders? Can I rub your stomach?" Big indicator of interest. And if she's like primping in front of you, like putting on her lipstick while she talks to you, you know, like fluffing up her hair. If her feet, the feet are the most honest part of the body. So if her feet are like defying gravity and like jangling around, and she's like bouncing her shoe on the edge of her foot while she talks to you, that means she's happy. Like if her feet and her arms and her hands are defying gravity, these are all signs that she's happy. And as soon as that stops, big sign that she's unhappy. So when you simply pay attention to these indicators of interest, then you don't have to embarrass yourself, embarrass her with your wrong moves, and you can just be attuned to what is going on instead of just blundering around. So I've often been really good at meeting women. Problem is usually been once they get to know me. Because in those initial stages of courtship, we're generally not seeing other people as they are. We're seeing them through our projections. Like we think we have this fantasy of who they are. And it's usually far removed from reality. That's why falling in love is a form of madness.